We are joined by Bruce LeVell. You are the Executive Director of the National Diversity Coalition for Trump. Did I get that right?
Yes, ma'am. That's
That's
correct.
It's a long title.
I know. It was actually longer, but we shortened it a little bit.
How could that be longer?
No, I'm just kidding. Well, when we were searching the names, we were going like, minorities are called America, great,
Right.
And then we all said, you know what? We're diversified. We're diversity. And that's where it came from.
Now, you are the Executive Director. You're also one of the founders. So
Right.
tell us how the group came to be and why you felt it was necessary to have this group.
Well, it started last year. We've had a series of closed-door meetings with Donald Trump, and I was invited as one with a lot of the African-American pastors and a lot of different coalitions that a lot of the media didn't know about, which is really how we wanted it, really, so we could get a really good pulse of what was really going on.
Mm-hmm.
So Michael Cohen is Executive Vice President for Donald Trump, and he's also his right-hand man, actually.
He actually came to speak to us yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah.
He get a word? He's awesome, man. He is so awesome. He represents Jewish American for Trump. He's our chairman of the board of NDC Trump, and we were all Pastor Darrell Scott, me. We were all going back and forth, and it was his idea. It's like, guys, we got all these beautiful people from all over the country, and everywhere we go, there's different ethnic groups that supported Donald Trump. So, well, let's put them all together. So this is where this came from, because obviously, unfortunately, Mr. Trump was pushed out as being a racist and all this other stuff, and we were like, wait a minute, where's all this coming from?
Or his tweets helped.
Oh no!
I mean, let's not pretend as if it came out of thin air.
Well, let's put it this way: it was the opinions of people how they wanted to shape it, respectfully. But Donald Trump has never made a quote unquote direct race comment towards any ethnic group. So anyway, we put this together and.
Well,
and here we are today.
Let's talk about this, because you mentioned coming together to celebrate the diversity of people who do support Mr. Trump. Right. At this stage, I got to tell you, we look around the room
right.
here, you don't see a lot of diversity, and I wonder if you can address that a little bit. Is part of the goal outreach to a lot of these groups? I'll read to you, if you don't mind, just the first line of a New York Times editorial, and it reads, quote, "The unrelenting whiteness of the Republican National Convention, perhaps the whitest in 100 years, is stunning in itself." The accusation here being that a lot of the speakers we've seen, because we've seen diversity on the stage, a lot of the speakers were very carefully chosen to try to present an image of the party that is not quite as diverse
there's
as
only
they
18,
show.
There's only 18 delegates who are African American, the
Right.
lowest number over the past.
Right.
So is that part of your goal with the coalition?
Here's the deal. Let's address the question in terms of the delegates. When you look across the sea of beautiful people down there from all the states, are you a member of are you a delegate, or are you in the process of a party or anything?
Am I?
Yeah.
No, sir. I'm
And the reason
just a journalist.
I know,
Yeah.
and the reason why I asked that, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, is that when you become a delegate or an alternate, there is a process. Join the party, whether it's the Democrat Party, Republican Party. You go through the caucusing stage. You volunteer in a campaign. You pay membership dues. You pretty much vet yourself amongst your constituents, and then when you get to an election cycle, then we start caucusing amongst each other who we want to elevate up to a delegate or alternate. So it takes a little time, but in all due fairness, Donald Trump has resurrected a whole new spirit of voters who didn't vote, and a lot of folks who came from the Democrat Party who were in our camp. Case in point, Omarosa, Darrell Scott, Pastor Brown, all those folks that you see, if you go to ndctrump.com, click on who we are, half the folks you see on that picture from that diverse background voted for President Obama, who are now in the Trump camp. Now, once we have this, we go into the re-election for Mr. Trump. Yes, I said re-election for 2020.
I noticed.
This question will go away, and you'll look down and you'll say, well, where are all the other people? So in all fairness, in that process, and you got to remember, this is part of the old establishment that is still here. Not to say everyone here, but
you are acknowledging then there's a lack of diversity in this room right now.
Yeah,
you're saying that will change over time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm not trying to run, but you're absolutely right.
No, not a problem at all. We have a board here we want you to take a look at, because it kind of highlights what is seen as an obstacle in terms of Mr. Trump actually securing the White House nomination, and that is the amount of non-white supporters he has, particularly in comparison to his opponent, Hillary Clinton. So if we could just show that board, please. So we see among non-white supporters, Hillary Clinton, of all of her supporters, 44% are non-white. 14% are for Donald Trump. Now, on the outset, that looks really, really bad. right? But the thing that's to your point that's kind of interesting is that if we could show the next board, please.
This one is going to sort of reflect the trend over time when it comes to some of that non-white support.
So if you take a look at that, even though his 14% is pretty low, in comparison to Mitt Romney, John McCain, and even W, among supporters who are non-white, his 14% is actually higher than theirs, which goes counter to the narrative that that minorities don't support him. Are you surprised to see that number, considering when you look out, the number of delegates have gone down over that period of time?
Well, you know, it's still a lot early. We have a long way to go. And you're going to see after tonight, and you're going to see Mr. Trump literally just pivot with his new VP. There's a lot of excitement going on right now. But that number in itself will turn to 20+% higher.
Why?
Because the message on jobs and the message on illegal immigration and the job and being aggressive on national security. There is no other candidate out there that is strong with that and holding special interest groups, lobbyists, everything that's infected our democracy on Democrat side and Republican side is he's going to challenge all of that, which is going to help and shake all that down and loosen those regulations up and loosen all those entitlements and things that hold us down to where we're paying so many taxes that it limits our ability to grow jobs from our small business. I'm a small businessman. I'm a job creator. I paid 36% out of taxes last year alone. Inventory tax, payroll tax, occupational tax, tax that. And so to challenge our trade agreements, to challenge how the regulations go on our businesses, Donald Trump is a champion because there's no one, he's not beholden to anyone. He doesn't owe any favors. So it's when we go further into this election, Hispanic voters as well as African-American voters are going to be like, wait a minute. To get hope and opportunity is where growth will come from. To give someone just like, wow, you know, this is what Donald Trump
Bernie
is
Sanders thought the same thing too, but that never materialized. He too spoke about the trade agreements. He too spoke about income inequality, and yet he couldn't find a way to grow his non-white base. So what makes you think Donald Trump, who is tweeting white supremacy groups and has offended a lot of other minority groups, what makes you think his message in terms of income inequality and trade agreements is going to be different than how Bernie Sanders was affected?
Well, two different types of candidates, but very similar. Good point. Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump had similar messages on big banks, lobbyists, hedge funders, both identical, which is another conversation that we're actually going to get a lot of the Bernie Sanders voters, and yes, we will. We'll get to that. But once again, Bernie Sanders' messages were always about growing the government and creating the word free. The word free is dangerous. You know, lower tax, less oppression on the people from government is real growth. Our GDP is just horrible. And so a person who's been proven and has that experience and been proven 40 plus years in the private sector, you know, why not? Why not give this man a chance? And the American people are going to see that. A successful family, a successful businessman resonates into hope on a leader that's going to take the White House. That's refreshing.
You think his message on the economy, his policy moving forward, that will cross racial ethnic lines, appeal to a wider electorate, and bring more people on board? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, it's going to bring all Americans on board.
Let me pose to you, if you don't mind, a question from some of our audience out in Facebook. We're being asked, how does the Diversity Coalition, I'm not sure if this, I think they're asking how you sort of square the messages Mr. Trump has delivered about potential deportation of undocumented immigrants and his proposal to ban all non-citizen Muslims.
Well, two things here. Let's get back to the word illegal immigration. And you know as well as all where this started from, the term of Mexicans coming across the border and all. That was totally false. It was always
Sorry,
illegal.
what was false?
About them, the media saying that Mexicans coming across the border, robbing and all this other.
Oh, sure. The media didn't say that. These were related to it was a statement Mr. Trump made saying that Mexico is not sending their best. They're sending their rapists. They're sending murderers.
Mexico is a continent, or excuse me, a country that neighboring borders Arizona and Texas.
Right.
And so therefore, that's what it is. Everything that comes from the south, from further down, comes through those borders. So yes, they're not governing their border accordingly. So we have to do something as American citizens in our government to protect ourselves and what's coming across, which is build a wall. So that in itself, there's never been any accountability. Every
never been
politician
any accountability
on both sides.
President
On both
Obama,
sides.
they called
Both
activists
sides.
called President Obama the deporter in chief. So it seems as if
He's actually deported probably more, I guess. I don't know. I don't know the exact numbers.
yes,
but,
he actually has deported more
Yeah.
people than W has.
right.
But I think the spirit of the question there is that there are some policies that seem pretty offensive to large swaths who live here in America. And I wonder how, as the head of what's meant to be the coalition, bringing people together,
Well,
bringing in a more diverse electorate, how do you
Right.
square those messages?
Well, interesting. For example, we have a lot of awesome Hispanic coalition advisors on our committee. Carlos Limon. When this conversation first came out, Carlos went on CNN. You've probably seen him. He went out. Carlos has a great story to tell. Carlos is a Mexican American, and he's basically, I think within a month he'll get his citizenship. He's doing the pathway, and him among other folks that we have on our board. I said, listen, go talk to Telemundo, Univision, and let's get back, Mr. Ramos, that relationship. I don't want anything where we can't communicate, no matter how uncomfortable it is. But the whole message was challenging his family, brothers and sisters back in Mexico and in his neighboring country. Look, go through the proper process. And I'm using this as an example, which is applicable to other ethnic groups. I'm not just on this particular ethnic group. But his message went out to use the legal immigration, and educate, because what happens is when, it's horribly wrong to be stereotyped from all cultures. I hate, no one likes to be like that. So I said, Carlos, put that message out there to challenge everyone to and he'll tell you, some days he'll stand 9 hours in a line to get all the way to the front to say, oh, well, you didn't check this box. You have to go to that line, and you go all the way back to. You ever been down to the INS?
Yes, sir. I have.
Then you know what I'm talking about. So, but don't be discouraged. It's not the best law in the world, but it is the law. So if we do have good immigration laws on the book, we have to apply them and abide by them. But I will tell you this, though, putting some more responsibilities back on the business owner. Business owners should be held accountable too. Don't knowingly and willingly hire someone that doesn't have proper paperwork, that can't pay in the Social Security system, or that can't pay in the payroll, because all that does is hurt the entire system. So it's actually a two-way street, because no one's gonna come over illegally and try to work if they know that the employer is going to be accountable, just like the law. So it's not just that. It's a compilation of a lot of folks who have to get accountable for this in order for this to work.
I would like to ask you a question that you and I had an opportunity, a topic that we talked about briefly yesterday, and that's about criminal justice reform. I don't need to remind you about what's going on in our streets right now in terms of the distrust between minority communities and the police. We just saw a report that was out today about a man lying on the ground with his hands up, said he was shot by a police officer even though his hands was up, and he was a therapist helping an autistic patient who had escaped the home. And now people are wondering what's going to happen to these police officers who seem to have shot yet another unarmed black man. My question to you is that listening to the speakers as well as Mr. Trump, it seems as if the understanding of the dangers that the police officers have to deal with, which I agree with and I think we all agree with, are very much in the fore, as they should be. But what isn't talked about is the other side, as to why that mistrust is there. What can Mr. Trump say and then eventually do if he becomes President Trump to help bridge this gap? Because regardless of if he's white, black, his supporters are white or black, this topic is not going away. So what do you know in terms of his plan to help bridge this gap between the minority community and police?
Well, there's one thing that's always been really dear to my heart that I do know about Mr. Trump, is that and I know I don't want to sound like a broken record, but when he says no one or no group he's beholden to for any monetary gain or anything like that, that's true. So with that type of spirit of, should I say, strong balance that will come into the White House, when he starts choosing his cabinet, choosing his ambassadors, choosing his leadership, there is no political favors whatsoever. So he'll be 100% totally free to pick a great AG all the way down, which also will resonate down in the leadership in the Justice Department, that will hold no favors or political favors if a politico gets in trouble or a police municipality gets way out of whack and does some violate civil rights. that will actually be stronger based on his character and his leadership, based on his leadership, who he chooses. So
what is that based on? Because we haven't heard him say anything, or we haven't heard any of his surrogates say anything, and we know his history in terms of who he was advocating for in Manhattan. And it did not seem as if, no matter how egregious the situation, it was for the victim. It always seemed as if it was for the police. So what do you have to base that on?
Well, based on his actions and the way.
Well, which actions?
Well, the way he's lived his life as a person, the way he's governed his employees, the way 40 years, LZ, 40 years. There is nothing. Now, you're talking about, if you really want to know about someone's closet, run for president. And here we are. We fought 16 candidates, governors, senators. We fought some of the biggest super PAC special interest groups. Jeb Bush spent $60 million on one attack ad in Iowa. We spent $46 million from June to last year on the entire campaign. So that is a reflection on character. That's a reflection on who he's going to choose in his leadership. Once again, that's going to transcend down into leadership, which is going to hold a lot of these judges and a lot of other people, as well as other citizens who break the law. So it's actually going to be a fair playing field.
Mr. LeVell, and I understand that you're talking about the things that he will put into place once you believe he makes it to office. Before he gets
when
there,
he will make it.
He's got a lot of people to convince that he's the guy.
Yeah.
When you look at the Hispanic population, we've talked about them so much already. The
Right.
latest Latino Decisions poll showed that 83% of Hispanic voters that they polled believed that he was racist.
Which poll is this?
Latino Decisions.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, okay.
Can we start there?
I got a poll.
Listen, forget the polls. There is a general perception that this is a man who makes some impolite statements about race, who makes some offensive statements about ethnic groups, who retweets white supremacist organizations and accounts. That exists. That's a very real thing. Not even speaking to the character of the man. That perception exists. So how do you counter that?
Well, look, at the end of the day, social media, you can take anything and make an opinion out of it.
No, sir. Wait.
Just-
He retweets
he
white
retweets
supremacists. That's a fact. So let's leave that on the
No.
table.
No.
You tell me.
He hesitated to denounce the KKK. That we do know.
He disavowed that, guys. Come on now, really.
He disavowed the endorsement of David Duke after some pressure. He absolutely did. And yet, sir, David Duke found something in Mr. Trump's campaign that he felt compelled to come out and endorse.
Listen, it's not uncommon for that crazy group, whatever the group that is, the KKK, whatever it is.
It is the KKK.
To try to latch on to someone that's popular. They've always done it that way. Mr. Trump.
President Obama is popular. They're not latching on to him. Come on, brother. Come on.
I don't know.
Bruce. Come on, Bruce.
I don't know.
Be real with us. Come on.
Because would they get attention? Probably not. It would be like that's not even worth talking about. That's a horrible topic to even talk about those people. They don't even exist in my mind.
The white supremacists? Oh, sir, they very much exist.
Where are they? I don't know. I don't hang with them. I don't know where they exist.
Mr. LeVell, come on.
Where are they?
Right-wing extremist groups are responsible. Up before the Orlando attack,
Listen,
they were responsible for more deaths on American soil post 9/11 than
I'm
any other group.
That Mr. Trump, and I know him personally, there is 1,000% absolutely. He has there is nothing related to him with any of this. Nobody.
Sure.
And
you're speaking to the character of the man as an individual, correct?
I'm saying it's wrong to put him in that category.
Which category?
Which category?
What we're talking about.
We're just stating the things that he's done. We're not putting him in a category. We're just stating the things that he's done.
You said all you want to say about this.
I mean, it's not worth talking about. I mean, because it's not true. So.
No, sir. I just, with all due respect, it is the fact that he has retweeted from these accounts, and I'm asking you, as the leader of this organization that's trying to outreach to a more diverse America.
All I know is
how do you answer that?
All I can say is we have over 840,000+ members of our coalition, and when I hear these polls and everything, and when we have grassroots advisors, we're not paid like people who are trying to get involved and get paid. These are really good leaders. If you take the time and go to research some of these people, they hold large congregations. They hold large community groups. C.J. Tara, you saw him on the stage last night. Muslim Americans for Trump. He has several hundred following him alone and will grow. Now, how do you explain that? C.J. Tara is part of our coalition. Pastor Mark Burns, Darrell Scott. He has a huge congregation right down the street in Cleveland. You've seen his church. It's huge, tons of members. You know, I asked him, I said, Pastor Scott, have you lost any members? He said, no, I've gained more. You know, because, you know, despite if someone doesn't like someone's personality, you know, people are attracted to someone who has good, strong leadership abilities and has the ability to speak the truth about the uncomfortable things that's been going on with all the lobbying and all the backdoor dealing that's going on. It's all infected. So Donald Trump is going to be a light for everything, for both sides. He's going to set an example on the Democrat side. I mean, this is real. This is a revolution.
We really appreciate you coming by and having an honest and
Okay.
uncomfortable at times,
Yes.
I know, conversation, because some of these things are uncomfortable.
Listen,
we appreciate
in order to
you
have
coming by to
change,
talk
we have
about
to
it.
have uncomfortable conversations. If
This
it's
is
too
very true.
comfortable, we can't make change.
Well,
This
we
is
will
very
see
true.
what Mr. Trump himself has to
Thank
say
you very,
tonight.
very much. Thank you.
All right, I
Thank you.
appreciate
Thank you for coming by,
Thanks.
sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.